Hello, Steeler Nation, and welcome to your SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker, and even though the OTAs are voluntary, I chose to host today. So I'm here alone today. If you're listening live on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, please be sure to send me some questions or comments. That way we can interact and have some fun. So cheers to you, Steeler Nation. Thank you for that. A little cool news coming up Sunday, I'll be on the Cars, Stars, and Everything in Between radio show with Bubba and Richard Bazzi on KDKA in the Pittsburgh area. So if you got the radio station on Sunday at 1 o'clock, the same time the Steelers play, go ahead and tune into 100.1 on the FM dial or 1020 on the AM dial for KDKA. You can also listen to it live streaming at odyssey.com/KDKA radio. I'll have all the links up on SteelerNation.com so you guys can jump on and listen live at 1 o'clock on Sunday on KDKA. So I'm really excited for that interview, and that should be a lot of fun with those guys. Also, in other radio news, Tunchilkin resigns from broadcasting today. He stated, "I've had 37 years in the NFL, with 14 as a player and the last 23 in broadcasting as the color analyst on the Pittsburgh Steelers radio network, and I've decided to retire." He's obviously has to focus now on ALS and the treatment along with that. It's such a degenerative disease. Sadly, I lost an uncle-in-law, my wife's father's brother, to ALS just about 8 years ago, and he went quickly. He was about a year from diagnosis through his passing, unfortunately. But our hearts go out to you. Our prayers go out to you. Also, Tunch, we love you. We hope to see you, as long as we can, and as high faculties as you have, because it's such a degenerative illness. And also, as a Steeler fan in general, I really hope that the Steelers put you on the wall of honor because you deserve to be there. So much love to you and your family, Tunch, and we're fighting for you. And I know you're going to continue to fight as well. Hey there, Kenneth. I see you out there on YouTube. So the chat is up and working. If you guys, I've been out and about, as you see, and I haven't been online a whole lot lately. I've gotten an RV. So I've been working on that a bit, and I've got it all torn apart. I'm gutting the kitchen, and I did all the sanding on the walls and stuff today and spackling. So today I'm going to start painting after the podcast. So that's the fun stuff that I get to do today. But back to the Steelers, since my life isn't nearly as exciting as what's going on in the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's only one player now not signed currently to the roster, and that is the single drafted player in the third round, Kendrick Green, the guard out of Illinois. Now that is a significant draft pick because it's such a position of need. And even though we took Kendrick in the third round, he looks to factor in pretty highly in the center competition here with BJ Finney and Hausener, who have both never been starters in the NFL, at least not for a whole year. They've both been spot starters at best. I'm not sure if either of them are a full season being starter caliber capable. So I have such high hopes for Kendrick Green being able to come in and hopefully lend the upgrading of position, both in his athletic ability, and he scores off the charts. I mean, they just saw if you guys checked out a video, I was shooting around, I think on Twitter, of him squatting 700 pounds. The guy is just a force. He is a physically strong man and huge explosion, near 10 feet on the broad jump, standing jump, and a 4.88. I think he was timed on the 40. That's insanely fast for an offensive lineman, running under a 5, obviously. But so it looks like they're expecting him to be that athletic type of center that they had with Dermetti Dawson, that they had with Marquise Pouncey, being able to make these dirty, nitty-gritty blocks at the line of scrimmage and get off of those blocks and hit the people downfield, because that's where the Steelers centers tend to separate themselves from the rest of the league in the way that they like to do things. But we love his nasty streak. We know he can hit. We know he can run block. We got to get him in here and hopefully block in and hitting hard. So yeah, KG is a beast, Kenneth. I'm with you on that as well. But we need to get in here quickly. I don't know why he's slowed down in the process. I tried to look up online if Illinois was one of the schools that don't allow you to sign the players before a certain date. I know that's happened in the past with certain players that we have drafted that we did not have them for OTAs due to college rules not being able to sign a player until a certain date. But I haven't been able to find anything on Illinois for that being the case. I also don't know if Kendrick has something personal going on or plans that he already had set in line that he probably relayed to the Steelers. But I expect this to be done shortly, and hopefully he'll be getting in here soon, and at least in some kind of capacity before training camp starts when they do the mandatory OTAs. So those will be coming up here right in the beginning in a few weeks as well, right before training camp. So because we're all learning a new offense, center's got to be in on the new offense. Center has to make all the calls as well. For blocking and protection. So you really need to get him in here to start doing that on an NFL level, since he just started getting his feet wet in college, doing it and doing it well, especially at the Senior Bowl. So organized. Oh, one thing I want to talk about before moving on to the OTAs, and that is Le'Veon Bell. And I know Le'Veon Bell, it's beating a dead horse, but he had to tweet out that the Steelers should have paid me what I wanted when they had the chance. And, you know, I loved Le'Veon Bell back at the time. I thought he was worth the money. I'm like, yeah, pay the man. The Steelers had 14.4 mil on the board. Steelers offered him a contract that essentially would have paid him out 30 million in the first 3 years. Even after that year. So he had 1 year where he had 14.5 mil on the table, completely take it off. So that's unrealized money in that year that he held out. In his next 2 years with the Jets, he only made 15 mil. So he held out for 14 mil to be paid 15 mil the following year. And then I think the balanced out before he was cut, he made another 4 or 5 million. Let me look that up. I have the numbers up here on Spotrac. Yeah, he made another 4 million before the Jets cut him, and then he made 700,000 with the KC Chiefs. So essentially another 5 million. So you're talking about just less than 20 million over 2 years when he left 14 million on the table before a new contract with the Steelers. So, you know, you can't say the Steelers should have paid you what you wanted when they had the chance, because they were the only one that gave you the chance. They were committed to you. You said no. And what has Le'Veon Bell done in the 2 years since? Well, here are the exact numbers because I had to look them up. Over 2 years, he had 1,117 yards rushing with 5 touchdowns. That's not very good. Looking at his career, only his rookie season and the season in 2015 when he was injured and only played 6 games did he rush for less yards. And that is with 2 years combined that we're comparing this to. So for each individual season, he's been less than his last 2 years. Actually, we'll throw in his last 3 years because he didn't have any yards rushing as well that year he held out. So, and 5 touchdowns is also less than every single year except for his injury-shortened season where he played 6 games. He had 3 touchdowns that season. If you want to add in the nearly 600 yards receiving that he's had, it was 599 with 1 touchdown. Again, only his injury season in his rookie year did he have less yardage than those 3 combined years. And for his total yards, 1,716. That seems like a good amount of yards, but man, he was a yardage machine. I mean, again, his rookie year and the year that he was injured, he was under the 1,700 yard mark. But here is the combined yardage that he had. 2014, 2,215 yards. 2016, 1,884 yards. 2017, 1,946 yards. The guy knew how to put up yardage in our system, and he was super, super successful in our system. And this just comes back to the grass isn't always greener, even if the team that you are going to happens to wear green. So sorry for your life decisions, Bell. Don't blame it on the Steelers. You had every chance to stay. You had every chance to commit and work hard and still put up great numbers. If you would have made that 14 million. If they would have tagged you again, I think the tag on the third year would have been like 25 million. It would have been related to the top 5 players, I think, of all of football when you're tagged 3 years in a row. So you would have gotten quarterback money. But other than that, he definitely would have gotten paid. So that's all I have to say about Le'Veon Bell. We'll go over here too. I mean, you just understand how it gets. Good question there. Kuap over there on Twitter asking, who do I think wins the second inside linebacker spot alongside Devin Bush? And right now, as we talk, that other spot is going to be worked on between Robert Spillane and Vince Williams, V-Dub. So V-Dub's awesome run blocker. Spillane showed he's athletic as hell, which really surprised me. If you're going to ask me today, trying to be the prognosticator, I would say Spillane is probably going to be starting next to Bush next year. I think he's more athletic. I think he also slams in the run game, and he's going to make more plays down the field, at least in the passing game. He is a much better pass defender than Vince Williams, though Vince Williams is the best run tackling and a gap blitzing linebacker on the team. No doubt. I think they're going to work in both of them. I think we're going to see heavy doses of Vince Williams overall against running teams when we play Baltimore, when we play Tennessee. But when we play passing teams, we're going to be more Spillane heavy. And honestly, when we go into third down, Spillane's going to be on the field if we're going to be going with a 2 inside linebacker set. He's just more diverse of an athlete. And that's the guy you want to have on the field at that time. So great question. Thank you, Kuap, for chiming in there on Twitter. And everybody, guys, this is live. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. If you got questions, go ahead and ask me. I'm here. I'm just having fun by myself. So this is great. So back to organized team activities, or as we know them as OTAs. NFLPA be damned, because the NFLPA came out with those huge statements urging players not to show up to OTAs this season. And what did players end up doing for the Steelers? We have 85% of our players showing up to OTAs. So, NFLPA, you go out, make your statements, tell them to boycott if they want, but they showed up. And specifically today, we got 2 new players showing up today. Deontay Johnson, Minkah Fitzpatrick are back and on the field at OTAs. I just saw the tweet pushed out by Deontay over at Juiced Up on Twitter. So thanks much, Deontay, for showing back up. And we can't wait to see you out there. He's one of my favorite guys. And the only difference between him and AB productivity is making sure he holds on to that football. And he has the skill to do that. So I'm really looking forward to what he's going to do this season. Big Ben Roethlisberger had something to say about our newest quarterback. He loves Haskins' arm. And he was quoted, I was just telling Coach Sullivan the other day that his release and throwing motion mechanics are some of the prettiest I have ever seen. That's a huge statement coming from Ben. I mean, he's including himself in that description. And that's, so you don't take it as he's trying to throw a slight on Rudolph. He's trying to throw a slight on Dobbs. He's not. You have to say he's throwing a slight on himself as well, because he says it's the prettiest mechanics he's ever seen. I mean, this is great. I mean, this is something we all know that Haskins is capable of from being the great quarterback over at Ohio State University. And we're looking forward to that transitioning into the NFL to see some kind of glimmer of what it was when he was on the field in college. And I believe he has that ability. I mean, going to play at that dumpster fire over in Washington, who doesn't even have a football team name, let alone a front office that is capable of running a team. Now he's on his second coach. He was on his second coach in 2 years, got on his bad side. He cut him mid-season, but their losses are a gain. We got a player with 2 years in the NFL on its rookie contract, the 15th pick of the draft. You're going to have great mechanics. You're going to have great athleticism when you're picking up a player of that caliber, which the Steelers were able to do, fortunately, for nothing. League minimum, 1-year contract, dump him, doesn't cost him a thing. Hey, let's see if it works out. If you beat out Dobbs and you're the third quarterback on the team, great. That's great. I mean, you made the team and we upgraded the quarterback list. If you beat out Rudolph and become the second quarterback, that's even better. then it means next year, maybe Rudolph's not our starter. Maybe we go with Haskins being the starter. But we're going to have to find out this year, and training camp, preseason games, that's when we're going to determine whether or not Haskins has what it takes to play in the NFL. And like I said, Kath, I love the Big Ben interview. Talked about what he thought of Haskins. Also going to talk about his decision to take a pay cut. And a lot of people thought the Steelers were the ones that kind of forced it on him, being like, Ben, we need you to take a pay cut. We're way over the cap at the time. I mean, I think they were like close to 30 million over the cap at that point. But since have gotten everything down underneath there, I think we're 9 under now. We've got some room to wiggle now. And I'll talk about some possible pickups too here. And after the, rookies get signed, and we got some wiggle room also for free agency. And I got one player I'm going to talk about here at the question section, but that'll be coming up here in a bit. But it was Ben's decision to take that pay cut. And that's a huge move by Ben Roethlisberger, because he wanted to make sure the team could re-sign those veterans that we're going to lose, that we're going to lose in unrestricted free agency. It's why Tyson Alualu's back. It's why, unfortunately, Vince Williams, he was cut because of his salary, but then he was brought back on a lower salary. So Steelers saved money, have him back, and they pay less to have Vince back on the team. And so fortunate to have that kind of caliber player back as well. Also with Juju Smith-Schuster, I mean, nothing goes to show you how much Juju respects Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, this is a young guy. This is a guy who started his brand in Pittsburgh. He understands he is a big fish in a small pond in Pittsburgh, and he can really solidify his brand. Whereas if he goes to LA, New York, there's a lot of attention and a lot of different players. He's got to compete for that time. He's got to compete to push his brand. But in Pittsburgh, where he is Litzberg, he's got his brand already, but he stated, I want to come back and play with Ben Roethlisberger for another year. And that speaks a lot, to him as a football player that has all the talent in the world, could have gone anywhere, could have made money anywhere, and said, I could have made more in Baltimore playing with Lamar Jackson, former MVP. I could have made more in Kansas City, who's going to go to the Super Bowl, it seems like, every year with Mahomes. I mean, that would have been a no-brainer. Both teams offered him more money, and he said, no, I want to come back and finish out with Ben for one more year. So his ability to be able to commit to Pittsburgh like that opens the window as well for when the Steelers have one of the largest room underneath the salary cap next year to be able to make him a serious offer to retain him, especially if he ends up having a great season, which I think he will, with Deontay Johnson expanding his role, with Claypool expanding his role, with Washington still being on this team and helping out, Ray coming back again. I mean, this is the same 5 rostered receivers we have, and I don't see that changing at all unless there's an injury to one of those players, a severe one. I just don't see anybody replacing any of those guys this year on that chart. Oh, Bully's asking me. Good question, Bully. I like that question. Bully Mob Kennel over on YouTube asking me, what running backs do I think are going to make the 53-man roster? So let's go over here quickly to the running backs. And I just want to rip down here through. We'll go over who all the running backs are and who's going to stay. Well, obviously the fullback's going to stay. That's going to be Watt. I think he's the man. Love him. Love Watt a ton. So we've got Kellen Ballage, who's a veteran that we picked up in the offseason. Right before the draft, just in case. So you have that kind of guy that can both, catch and run. But he doesn't have a lot of productivity yet in the NFL. Like him, though. Trey Edmonds, brother of Tremaine, who plays on the other side of the field over at safety. And we have Najee Harris, we just drafted. Anthony McFarland, who was drafted the year prior. Jalen Samuels, very diverse pass-catching running back, in my opinion, the best receiver out of running back, and Benny Snell. So you got Ballage, Edmonds, Harris, McFarland, Samuels, and Snell. That's 6 guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think they're only keeping 4. So if I had to go, which ones are they going to keep? Harris, obviously, that's number 1. I'm going to say Anthony McFarland. A lot of people have him on the cut mark. The reason why I don't have Anthony McFarland as a cut is because The new offensive coordinator was his college coach for his most productive year in college. I think he's going to stay on the team. He knows how to use that type of talent. He can be used diversely, both in the pass catching as well as being the fastest running back on the team. So those two guys, I think, are your locks. Now you have to talk about Trey Edmonds, Kellen Ballage, Benny Snell, and Jalen Samuels. You're only keeping two of those guys. Right now, Trey Edmonds, I'd have to say, is probably not going to make the team because I see too much talent. Jalen Samuels is one of our better pass blockers on third down, as well as our best receiver out of the backfield. I think he's going to make the team, if you got to ask me now. So now it's between Benny Snell Jr. and Kellen Ballage as your last two running backs to make the team. I want to say Snell, just because of his ability to be that more bruising type of back if we end up losing Najee. But Kellen Ballage is essentially the same type of player. So this is actually going to be the fight, I think, in training camp, is for that fourth running back spot between Ballage and Snell. And if you're going to ask me today, I'll probably say Snell just because he's been with the team a little longer. But if Ballage can show you that he's the savvy veteran that he is and that they coveted when they grabbed him in free agency, he's got a shot. But I think that's a pretty tight race between those two guys. But unless there's an injury, those are the guys that I'd say are going to be on the roster this year. So thanks a ton. That's a great question, Bully. I really appreciate that, man. Back to OTAs. The rookies are starting to impress. We've got all of them in OTAs right now, except for Kendrick Green, which I discussed at the top of the show, being the only person not signed yet. Hopefully he gets back here soon. But everybody else, Freiermuth is doing well with the tight ends. You got Najee. Najee is starting to become like my favorite Pittsburgh Steeler. I mean, I didn't do the research on what type of person he was. I knew what type of running back he was. And I thought, you're pretty much on standard with Travis Etienne and Harris. I was like, it's a coin flip. Until you take into account, being a team leader, being a mature young man, and being a great human being. I mean, being at, not going to the draft and being in the homeless shelter that he was at for a month or two when he was younger, that they supported his family to help them get back on their feet. I mean, that speaks volumes to a player who's willing to give back to the community on the day he's going to become a professional athlete. We're going to love this guy. And obviously we love the way he jokes about, he didn't know there were so many hills in Pittsburgh. He doesn't know how people are going to get up in the snow. So just poking fun at Pittsburgh. Can't believe they have so many bridges. And but we're just going to have a blast with the guy. The guy has a great sense of humor. He's a good guy. I think he's going to be great for the community. So I'm really starting to love what he's bringing to the team. And all the Steeler Nations now need to start getting excited because all of the linemen that are talking now, you got, DeCastro, you got Big Dot, you got Banner, all super impressed with what Coach Clem is doing as the new offensive line coach. And he's pushing the line for a more aggressive style of blocking, which aggressive offensive linemen love that kind of crap. I mean, you get your older offensive linemen, Pouncey's at the end of his days. He's more happy to finesse block. DeCastro too, to an extent, but DeCastro has the ability to knock the crap out of people. And I'm hoping that this new influx, as well as Green, if we can get Green in there, he loves to knock the crap out of people too. Banner, I know he's a slobber knocker. He loved doing that as the extra tight end. That's why Steeler Nation screamed for him every time he came out on the field. Sorry, as the extra tackle, not as the extra tight end. He was tackle eligible, so he could receive, but love having him out there too and singing the praises of Coach Clem. So Steeler Nation can really start enjoying maybe a little bit of 3 yards and a cloud of dust type of football with Najee Harris, because that would be pretty fun to watch moving forward. And now it's time on the show where I get to take questions from Steeler Nation. And if you go on over to the SteelerNation.com forum page, awesome football talk there every day with the members. It's free to join. And I take my questions from there first. So if anybody else has a question, please chime in on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, and I will get to your question in kind after answering the forum questions, which I'm going to now. First one coming from Blitz. What free agent would I sign? And I had to give this very little thought because right now, if I got to sign a free agent, it's a cornerback. No question. Losing Nelson and Hilton and only having Sutton to replace both, you've got a vacuum. Somebody needs to either play outside or somebody needs to play that slot. And from a money perspective, the person I signed today would be Brian Poole. And that was the old Jets nickel quarterback. Love the guy. Great player. Disruptive. Plays the run too. Can tackle. If you ask me to bring back Nelson, I think that ship has sailed unless he really, concedes that he was wrong instead of still trying to blame this situation on the Steelers, which they did everything he asked. And he's still trying to blame the Steelers. I mean, come on, man. Nobody still wants you. I also like Richard Sherman. I think he'd be a good 1-year option, but he's going to be more expensive. Might be in the $7 to $8 million range, whereas Brian Poole would normally be in like the $4 or $5 million range. But since he's still there, Steelers might get him for 3 or 4. And to me, that's a no-brainer. You're locking up a position. Sutton can concentrate on the edge. You got good edge players behind them. And you've got some young players that you drafted that can start learning that nickel cornerback spot behind Poole. That's my guy, Poole. Now, the other interesting position, which we would have gone if we didn't draft Najee Harris, is running back. And there are a ton of running back talent still left on the board there, starting with Todd Gurley. You got him still looking for a job. Duke Johnson, TJ Yeldon, Dion Lewis, Chris Thompson, LaShawn McCoy. I know he's getting up there. Adrian Peterson, Frank Gore, all the old men still out there running the football, though I do love some shady LaShawn McCoy. And that's a lot younger at 33 as opposed to 36 and 38 for Peterson and Gore. But another name on this list, Le'Veon Bell. That would have been a guy I would have considered bringing back because right now he's not going to make crap. And honestly, the Steelers should offer him a vet minimum contract, just like he got with KC. And just to have him come back with his tail between his legs to show he was wrong, but he still wouldn't start. I mean, we'd have him in there. It's Najee's team now. So that's probably, it's just from a fan schadenfreude perspective where the Steeler fans know we were right. Bell, you were wrong. You left under the wrong circumstances. You left $14 million on the table, only got paid $14 million the next year after waiting a year. So, it's your fault, but that's the way it goes. But great question there, Blitz. That's who I'd pick up. Brian Poole, nickel cornerback from the Jets. Steelers, go out there and sign him. Mighty Guru with a question from Steeler Nation. How's about some more analysis of Canada's system? And I love talking about Matt Canada. I live over here in the Maryland area, and I got to see firsthand what type of offensive mind he is here at the University of Maryland, especially when they had Gray line up. Oh, it's too bad we don't have Gray anymore. That was Derwin Gray, who used to be the interior offensive lineman, played guard when McFarland was breaking off those huge runs as well over there at Maryland. But he loves play action. He loves motion before the snap is his number one. And that was like, we see some motion before the snap in the NFL, but really we don't see like motion on every play before the snap in the NFL. I think the last team to really, really utilize that type of motion pre-snap was the Washington Redskins back when they had Mark Rippon. They were going motion every play with that team that year, it seemed. But that is what you get in Matt Canada. So you're going to have him move people around after the set look to try to get mismatches of his players against your players that Ben can exploit. And that is what Ben does well. Ben is able to make those reads normally without doing pre-motion. So now with motion, he's going to get even more of an advantage to see who lines up. When you get some of these linebackers on wide receiver matchups that happen that everybody's like, how can you do that? How can you put a linebacker on a wide receiver? It happens because they move people around people. That's the way it's done. That's how you get these mismatches. It's because the other team is outmaneuvering you and using play action to get these kind of mismatches. And, New England's been doing it for years too with subpar athletic talent at the skill positions. I call them unskilled, skilled position players that they've had over there in New England. But they utilize that pre-snap motion to move people, get people on the edge, get people out in spaces where you didn't expect them to be. And then all of a sudden you've got a linebacker covering his faster receiver on the inside. And if they do a drag route and they turn it up, you're not covering them. You're not staying with them. And that's how a lacrosse player like Hogan could destroy us in an AFC championship game. So pre-snap, that's the stuff. This is the stuff we get to look forward to. And it's finally at the time where we have an offensive coordinator that's able to utilize the talent, the individual talent of the players that we have. Like, we're not going to have McFarland go out there and try to run it up the middle for 3 yards or third and 1. That's not what we do. We're going to have McFarland in the backfield and then shoot out left and then run either a jet sweep or cut out for a pattern. And that's the type of stuff that we need. Putting people in a position to play. We're probably going to see Derek Watt catch a pass this year because he can. He was a tight end, but we didn't see him catch a single pass last year, even when he's wide open in the end zone. That was on Ben. But moving forward, you're going to see that these are the things we're going to state. You're going to see the fullback catch a pass. You're going to see the fullback run the ball a bit more too. You're going to see running backs start in the backfield, move wide. You're going to see wide receivers start wide and come back in for running plays. And then you run the plays off of that. So pre-snap is going to be the biggest change. We saw a little bit of it early last season. Once the injuries started hitting, then it completely left. It was gone. We couldn't go back to it because it takes so much more practice to be ready to do the pre-snap stuff and know your assignments. So look forward to that, Steeler Nation. Let's look forward to Canada. And he's probably the most excited I've been for an offensive coordinator in my history of following the Steelers. Haley, I was a little excited about. Arians, I wasn't excited at all, but he ended up being very good. Now he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. So kudos to you, Arians. But let's see what Canada can do. He's done it for multiple teams. He's done it for Pittsburgh. A lot of you Pittsburgh players or Pittsburgh fans, Pitt fans have watched him also do it at Pitt. So we know what the guy can do. We're looking forward to him doing it on the NFL field with this talented, fast wide receivers and running backs that we have now. So last questions come from Drink Iron City. Cope, there has been many a Steeler fan characters over the year. Would you consider dyeing your massive beard to black and gold to contribute to the characterization continuance of the Steelers folklore? And that is a great question and very verbal. And characterization continuance. I love that. That's great alliteration in general. Contribute to the characterization continuance. And I had trouble saying it. It's like a tongue twister. But yes, I've considered dyeing my beard black and gold, doing the black on the outside with the gold stripe down the middle. But haven't done it yet, but I always do dye it black at Steelers seasons when I go to the games because I think it just looks better with the black and gold appeal. So yeah, I'll do that. I'll think about it. I think maybe I'll have to do it with like a temporary yellow, like get some spray yellow from the Halloween store around Halloween time. We'll see how it looks, but I don't think I'll do it with a permanent yellow stripe down there, but that would be a little bit of fun. We'll look forward to that here during the season, because I do stuff with my hair and my beard that's always fun, and I'm down to a little bit more trim now. It's no longer Kiesel-esque. I've decided to trim it, so now I'm out and about doing a little bit more, and people are seeing me a bit more. I'm a little bit more trim. So also asked, Dan Moore has competed his college career against very formidable talent. So could he impress enough to possibly be the starter at left tackle right out of the gate? He could. He has to get past Chukwuma Okorafor, and Chooks he's a starting caliber offensive tackle. He was the right tackle last year. Next year, he's going to be the left tackle, and he was a left tackle all through college. So he's playing on his natural side now. He was going to back up if Villanueva would have ever gone down, he would have swapped over to the left side. We would have thrown somebody back in at right tackle then. But that's going to be the way. Moving forward, he's locked in his spot at left tackle. He's going to be it's his job to lose. Could Dan Moore beat him out in preseason and training camp? He could. The only way I could see him starting though now is if Chooks gets an injury, which I'm not wishing on anybody on our offensive line, especially after Zach Banner's year. I love you, Zach Banner. Don't get hurt. So moving forward, Chooks is probably the starter. Moore's got a chance, but it's kind of an outside chance to tell you the truth. And to me, the only spot that can be upgraded on the offensive line right now with our draft picks that we have is center. and that's getting Kendrick Green in that center position because he is way more talented than BJ Finney, who looks like he's going to be penciled in as the starter right now. And then your last question, or you got two more questions. There's talk of a slow transition into Matt Canada's offense, and I get that, but is that just to cover for not outright transitioning to full-blown Matt offense? Will he be held back, so to speak? And I think the only thing holding back a full transition to Matt Canada's offense is Ben Roethlisberger. You have a quarterback that's been in this league for 18 years that knows how to play the game, and you've got to make your system cater to his strengths. So if we were going with a new quarterback this year, it would be full Matt Canada offense. Since we have Ben Roethlisberger, you have to do things that make him comfortable, but you're also doing things to make sure that he can succeed and to make his job easier at his age. And that is what Matt is going to do best for him, is work with Ben to make sure they're getting the right personnel, the right plays called, the right motions pre-snap to help him out, to read that defense more quickly and more effectively, to get that ball out quicker and down the field a little bit farther, not just at the 3-yard range, which everybody saw was coming last year. So that part of the game is going to open up. The mid-range is going to open up. The long game is going to open up. And I'm just looking forward to the way that, especially with the running game, the commitment to the run is going to open up the deep pass game again, too, because that play action pass is going to be, you're going to bite on Najee Harris taking a play action this season. The guy can run the ball. He's a man. He is a man in young man's clothing, and he is going to destroy the league out there. And he, like, his ability to be able to come to a team with this much talent, he's going to be in the talks for offensive rookie player of the year. So we'll see what he, that's the way maybe I'm wearing Steeler glasses, but I honestly think he has that type of talent, and he's always been playing with talent his whole life, especially at Alabama. So he knows what to do with it. So I'm looking forward to how that's all going to transition and work out. I think these new players are going to help out as well, but we're going to see him go full Matt offense, obviously, when we go to the new quarterback next year, because we're going to start drafting quarterbacks that fit his system. And that's going to be fun to do as well. And last question, in all honesty, I see the Steelers making a postseason splash. Do you? Yes. As long as Ben is healthy, even if he isn't healthy, if we have a committed running game, I think Rudolph can take us to the playoffs this year. When we didn't have that committed running game, it was a little tougher for us, but now, yeah, I think it's Super Bowl or bust this year. I think we're going to go deep into the playoffs this year with a healthy Ben, with a healthy defense. This is going to be a really tough out for any team, no matter how hard our schedule is, if everyone is healthy. So that's great. And Drink Iron City also adds, as always, thanks for doing these and looking forward to supper time, listening to entertainment. You are welcome, my friend. Enjoy dinner. And I'm glad that you listen and contribute as much as you do. So back over to the questions. Thank you so much, guys, for jumping in and throwing up some questions. What corners do I see making the team? Thanks, DC. I'm going to go over here and look at see what the corner situation is currently. We've got, well, obviously the starters are going to be Hayden and Sutton, it looks like, on the outside. I know Justin Lane's going to be making the team, and James Pierre. I think those are your locks for your 4 outsides. Then we've got DeMarcus AC, Shakur Brown. Everybody likes Shakur Brown. There's a lot of talk on him right now. Mark Gilbert, James Pierre I talked about, and Steven Denmark. I think I'm missing one of the. They might be listed. I'm going to go down and see if it's listed as a nickel cornerback. Nope, not listed as a nickel corner. I thought we had that one guy in as a nickel. So the nickel is the area where I think you're going to have the most competition, especially if you have Sutton coming in to play that edge. And if they see him locking it down as well as I'm anticipating him. I mean, he had such an edge for being the starting edge that Steven Nelson, who was one of the highest rated PFF players, left the team just so he didn't have to compete against the guy. I mean, Nelson knows Sutton can play. Nelson left because he didn't want to lose money in a contract year, which would have been this season, if he lost his starting job to Sutton. And that's the way it goes. So Sutton's a starter. Hayden's a starter. Oh gosh, it's anybody's guess on the inside right now. I mean, I like Shakur Brown. I like Mark Gilbert. probably because they're going to keep 2 right now. And if they don't go out and grab Poole, those are probably your guys. AC's going to have a little bit tougher time. I know he came off of a big injury. But he's got all the talent in the world to be a good player. We'll just have to see if he works out. But that's the risk that the Steelers are now taking, an undrafted rookie free agency as opposed to doing it in the draft. And that's another good draft strategy, is they're not drafting injured players anymore, waiting until undrafted rookie free agency to bring those players in to see, hey, if you have that ability to play 2 years ago like you did, you got a chance of making in this league, and you have a chance of making our team better. So that would be the ones to look forward to. So thanks so much for the question there, DC2, over there on Twitter. And let's see. Yeah, Kenneth, I heard that too. Kenneth's over on the Steeler Nation forum, and there's some talk about grabbing Vander Esch, who I love as a player. And I think he has that type of elite talent and diverse talent, kind of the way that Devin Bush has on the inside linebacker spot, and would love to see Vander Esch and Devin Bush both next to each other. But I'm not willing to give up draft capital for anybody, especially with having Spillane already. I mean, you're talking about, yeah, it's an upgrade, but you also have to deal with Vander Esch's injury situation. And he's been injured every single year since his rookie year. I think his rookie year was his only healthy year that he's had. And ever since then, he's had significant knee injuries, significant injuries to take him out for significant portions of time the rest of his career. So, you know what might happen? Dallas might cut him this year. And if they cut him, yeah, you go pick him up. But I'm not going to give up draft capital for anybody this year, especially since I think they've already given up 2 picks, like a 4th and a 5th, I think, are already off the board from different trades, one in the draft to move up the round to go and draft that defensive Loudermilk when we went up to draft Loudermilk, and the other one from a previous year, which I think was a 5th rounder for next year with the Jets or something. But yeah, those are the marks. So I'm not giving up any draft capital because I think the Steelers need it, especially without having Ben next year. Team is going to be going into rebuild mode, finding their franchise quarterback. You need all the draft capital you can to try to get one of those top quarterbacks to hopefully transition, make the transition smooth. Hopefully we can be like a Green Bay or like a San Fran and have one Hall of Famer follow another. That would be freaking amazing. Let's see. Shane Burgess over there on YouTube. Don't you think we will be forced to cut down the quarterback down to 3? Who gets cut? And that's a good question. I think I alluded to that a little bit earlier in the show, but I didn't flat out say who my top 3 quarterbacks will be, because the 4 that we have right now in order would be Big Ben number 1, at least on the depth chart. This is the way I'm going, depth chart, and I'll go my personal take. Ben number 1, Rudolph number 2, Dobbs number 3, Haskins number 4. They're on the team currently. If you're asking me who gets cut, I think Dobbs is going to be the one that gets cut this year. I think he's going to stay on the practice squad. He's an easy practice squadable guy. The Steelers cut him early, didn't cut him, but kept him on the roster knowing they were going to trade him to Jacksonville and get a draft pick out of him because they liked Duck so much that year when Duck was the 4th. Dobbs is the borderline 4th. He's a smart guy. He helps out Ben in his game tremendously. Keeping him on as the practice squad guy is perfect in our system because he'll be able to make those moves from the practice squad. So I'm going to say Haskins just because he has more pure talent. And I think he's going to be able to show he can do a little bit more than Dobbs can as a quarterback in the preseason here. And he's going to make some plays. So, because, Dobbs is always up and down, and sometimes he has great preseasons. Sometimes he has bad preseasons, but this year is definitely going to show. And if Haskins show he can make plays, he's making the roster. You're welcome, Kenneth. Anytime, bro. Dude, it's Super Bowl or bust every year. You're right, Brian. Thank you for chiming in on that. Zachary Moore over on the Twitter. Love the pod. Hopefully I'll be on soon. We'll love it. Yeah, Zach, I was waiting for you to write me back, and I was going to set it up for 2 nights ago. But since I didn't hear back from you, I got into working on the RV, and I just never finished stuff. And then I got yelled at by Justin. But I love you guys. Love you, Justin. Thank you for everything. And we'll have you on here soon, Zach. So looking forward to talking with you. He will be on the podcast soon. But until then, you just have Stryker. But be sure to come and check me out on the Cars, Stars, and Everything in Between radio show with Bubba and Richard Bazzi this Sunday at 1 p.m. That's Steeler kickoff time. Sunday, 1 p.m. Turn on your local Pittsburgh radio dial to KDKA at 100.1 FM or 1020 on the AM dial, or listen at Audacy.com, AUDACY.com/KDKA radio at 1 o'clock on Sunday to hear my interview with Buzzy and Bazzy. Awesome stuff, man. Be sure to check out our sponsor over at tseshop.com. They got tons of awesome signed stuff and fun stuff in between. Perfect for any Steeler fan. So jump over to tseshop.com to grab some awesome swag. Read our articles at SteelerNation.com. Tweet us at SteelerNation. Instagram us at SteelerNation.com. Follow the Steeler Nation podcast on Twitter at _SN podcast. And follow me on Twitter and Instagram at SN_Striker. Striker spelled with a Y. Thanks for joining us on the SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker, soon to be with Bubba and Bazzy on KDKA Radio, rooting along with you as always. Go Steelers!